Okay, so let's go to another event, second event. And this is going to cover the semi-annual period, so this is going to tie everything together. Chairman Ragusa is an avid sports fan, so the second fundraising event is also tied to a sporting event, the June 7th, 2010 Milwaukee Brewers game. Lenny and Andrew each provide Lucille their invitee list at the event. Based on those lists, the party credits Lenny with raising $5,000 in contributions and Lenny with $20,000. Edna wasn't able to attend the event, but Lucille knows that Edna invited many of the attendees and credits her with raising $10,000 in contributions. So again, our criteria, nothing's changed. We know they're registered lobbyists. We know they're credited with raising contributions, so we need to turn to the monetary threshold for disclosure. So we're looking at a June 7th date. Our July quarterly requirement, our July quarterly covered period would be April 1st through June 30th. So is the committee required to file the July quarterly report? Well, if we look back at how much money each bundler was credited with, we can see that, yes, Andrew was credited with raising $20,000. So the committee is required to file this July quarterly report. Okay, so what does that look like? We're going to look at our first page of our Form 3L again. Okay, and what do we need to do since we're talking about the second quarter report, the July quarterly? Liz said there are 2 times during the year where you have to kind of make another assessment. At the July quarterly report and the year-end report, we need to make an assessment for our semi-annual period here as well. So when you're looking at the July quarterly period, you also need to make sure you're assessing the semi-annual period as well, the 6-month period. So that's what we're going to do here. And so when we're looking at the first page of the Form 3L, we're going to have to check 2 boxes again. This is really important to do so that it's clear that the report is covering both covered periods. So we're going to check the July quarterly box, and with that we're going to include in line 6 the covered period of April 1st through June 30th, and we're also going to check the box that shows the semi-annual period of January 1st through June 30th. Okay, so both should be done. So in terms of how it looks on the Schedule A, this gets a little trickier because you need to look at each individual now and not only look at what they have bundled during the quarterly period of 4/1 to 6/30, but also look at what they have bundled from January 1st to June 30th. Okay, so we're going to be making 2 assessments. Let's start with Andrew. Andrew, he's the only one who triggered disclosure for the July quarterly period. Okay, so the committee's going to have to disclose $20,000 for him in the quarterly covered period field, okay, along with all the other contributor information that we talked about, the name, address, and the name of employer, okay? So you know below that, we can see that in making the semi-annual assessment, the $25,000, that's when you're looking at Andrew across the entire 6-month period in our scenario, he's credited with bundling $25,000, okay? So while if you look back to the first quarter, he was only credited with raising $5,000. The committee was not required to disclose him at that time. But now that $5,000 amount has to be included in the semi-annual covered period amount. So does that make sense? So you're looking at the 6-month period for the lower field, and then for the top, it's the quarterly covered period for that individual, okay? So that's Andrew. So if we look down at Lenny now, okay, in the July quarterly period, he bundled less than $16,000. Okay, so his amount, it looks like, was $5,000. So there's nothing that needs to be disclosed in that top field for the July quarterly period because he didn't trigger the $16,000 there. But below that, if you look at the full 6-month semi-annual period, January 1st through June 30th, he's credited with raising $25,000. Okay, so that's what needs to be disclosed in the semi-annual covered period field for Lenny. And then if you look at Edna again, she's not credited with raising any contributions for the July quarterly period. However, over the course of the 6 months, she's credited with $20,000. So that's the amount that goes in the lower field. Okay, so we still have something to do here. Any ideas what we have to do to disclose? Remember, the semi-annual report still need to disclose something. Any ideas? Yes, exactly, the refund. So if you recall, some of the bundle contributions that were originally credited to Lenny were refunded back in the first quarter, okay, so in the 1/1 through 31 period, 3/31 period. So if we're looking at the entire semi-annual period here now, we need to account for those, okay? So this is what that's going to look like. On the Schedule B, again, since for the 4/1 to 6/30 period, no refunds were made, the top field is going to be blank. So the quarterly covered period field is blank, okay? But now we're looking at the full 6-month period. That refund was made back on March 29th, so it's during the 6-month period. And so the bottom field, the semi-annual covered period field, must be filled in to reflect that Lenny was refunded that amount during the 6-month period. Kind of going back on something that Liz said, just kind of want to throw a question out there. Would any of this disclosure, would it have made a difference if the lobbyist had made personal contributions? Would it have affected any of this disclosure? No. Good. I see a lot of shaking heads. No. Those contributions would be disclosed on the normal 3 or 3X filing. Okay, so they don't have anything to do with what's being disclosed on the Form 3L. So that's an important point. So it doesn't factor into your aggregation. Okay, so let's go over some key points really quick to kind of wrap up here. Some of the things that Liz covered. Lobbyist registrant PACs and leadership PACs must identify themselves on FEC Form 1, and like Liz mentioned, if you haven't done that yet, please do so as soon as possible. Secondly, if a lobbyist registrant or a lobbyist registrant PAC forwards or is credited with raising 2 or more contributions that total more than $16,000 during the period, the committee must file a Form 3L. Okay, so that we went through all of our criteria. The 3 criteria are really important to take a look at when making that determination. Okay, so I did want to mention this. Liz said, and correctly said, that committees are going to be filing their 3L according to their normal 3 or 3X filing schedule. However, if a committee happens to be a monthly filer on their 3X schedule, then they can opt to file their 3L quarterly. So that's definitely an option. You just need to follow the same guidelines that you do for your normal change request, and that's just to request a change in filing frequency change with the commission. If you're filing electronically, do that electronically. But please specify for Form 3L, because now we want to make sure that you're telling us which form you want to change your filing frequency for, whether it's 3X, 3L. It should be clear. And you can do that also once per calendar year, just like your normal Form 3X. And when we receive that request, we'll send you an acknowledgement which will also outline your future filing requirements. Okay? Okay, so these were our objectives. Hopefully we covered them all. We explained the new lobbyist bundling disclosure rules. We defined the terms created by these rules. We outlined the filing deadlines for the committees, and we evaluated the scenario to show you how to properly disclose the activity. We would love it if you could please fill out the evaluations in your folders so that we can kind of gauge how effective this was and to kind of get your input on how you enjoyed, if you enjoyed or if you did not enjoy this session. Thank you so much for coming, and we can answer any additional questions if you have any.